with Liz McColgan in 3, 2, 1.
Big welcome along to the Young Hearts Run Free podcast to Liz McColgan, here joining us from Doha. How are you?
Great, thanks. Thanks for inviting me on. I heard that Eilish was a roaring success, so I'm following my daughter's footsteps instead of the other way around for once. So, no, all good and happy to be on your podcast.
Thank you very much for making the time to speak to us pair, as a lot of folk call us. That's the kindest thing they call us, by the way. And yeah, we can't wait to get chatting to you. We had a ball speaking to Eilish, and it went down really well, and some of the messages and insights that she was given, we had tons and tons of good feedback. So, but it's leveled up now, isn't it, John? Leveled up.
Well, I did say, and I said earlier on, we were using the hashtag with Eilish, bring your ma. She never brought her ma, so we're bringing her ma to you. And Liz has very kindly given up her time. And I'm going to be 100% honest, I'm a wee bit up to high though, right? Because this is absolutely phenomenal what we're doing here. Really, really happy about this. Eilish is a fantastic role model. Then one of the role models that we champion. She's absolutely fantastic for not just young females, young people to look up to in sport. And one of the things we spoke about was about keeping young people interested in sport, and that's one of the challenges that we've got. However, I'm assuming most people will know who Liz McColgan is, right, and what they've done. But what I would like to know is, initially, what got Liz McColgan or Liz Lynch started in running? When did it start for you? Was it primary school? Was it secondary? What happened? What's your story?
It was a bit like Eilish, really. I went up to first year at St Saviour's High School, and it was just in first year. I was from obviously a council estate, and parents were out of work, and so there wasn't a lot of finances about and whatever. So I was one of these kids that kind of took part in whatever club was going on, at lunchtime or after school or whatever. And the PE teacher was just a local marathon runner. He was really into his running, so he used to do cross country clubs, at lunchtime, and at weekends used to take the kids off to inter-county schools and all that sort of thing for athletics. And whereas when he used to put us on cross-country race sort of runs around the school, a lot of the kids wouldn't be able to keep going. And, I was always one that was, I'd be up at the front and doing the whole loop without stopping. And he just said to me, I think you've got a wee bit of an aptitude for running. And he sort of put me and 3 other kids, he pushed us towards the local running club, which was the Dundee Hotco Harriers. So we went along there when we were about just turning 12. And Harry Bennett, who was the coach there, he started coaching us. And I think out of the 4 kids, 3 of them stuck it for maybe a year. But it was just something that, for me, it was something that didn't cost money. And my mindset, I'm quite a sort of a stubborn person, and running suits my mindset. It challenges me in a way that nothing else challenged me, and I could find that I could be on my own and not get bored and just go and run and really, really enjoy it. And then obviously because of the background of lack of finances, I could just go outside my door and I had country roads, country fields, and off I went. So for me it was available and affordable. And I was very lucky that the coach, Harry Bennett, really took me under his wing, and he really mentored me really, really well. And so he coached me all the time since I was 12. When I was about 16, I was into all sports. And when I was 16, he kind of took me aside and said, look, I think you could be really good at running, but you'd have to give all your other sports up. And, I want you to come and sort of train extra with me. So I did that right away without even thinking. And then because I was captain of netball, played volleyball, did all the sports at school, hockey teams. And I gave all that up and then just started running a little bit more. Instead of training twice a week, I was training 4 times a week. And then I left school at 16. Main reason I left was because I got selected in my first ever international athletic competition down in England, and it was part of the Scottish schools team. and the school wouldn't give me any time off for, it was exam week, and they wouldn't give me time off to go and race or to make up my exams. And so I chose to go and run, and so I missed my exams, and so I didn't sit my exams. So I actually left when I was 16, was on a YTS scheme under Maggie Thatcher's rule, and I was working for £23.50 a week. And I was working in a jute mill, and it wasn't the most healthiest of places for someone like myself that was trying to train, and that was a lot of oil and dust and all that sort of stuff. And I was going to work at like 5:30 and finishing at 5, and Harry would be picking me up at 5, and then I'd be going and doing a session. And I was just very fortunate that just after my 17th birthday, I was actually ranked 3rd in Britain for the 800 metres, and some random person called me from the States and offered me a scholarship. But because I'd left school with no qualifications, I had to sit like an SAT test and things, and I was just like, nah, I'm not doing that. But the guy, for some reason, I don't know how he ever done it to this day, actually had got Harry's number, and Harry was the person who came up to my mum and dad and said, look, you know, we need to force her to go. You know, there's no way she's going to do anything here. You know, she's just going to work in a jute mill the rest of her days. And if her running can get her, you know, an education and to see the world, you know, you need to let her do it. And so they sort of made me go and sit this SAT test, which I passed easily enough. And then Harry actually paid for my flight to go to the States and frog marched me off, sobbing my eyes out, because I'd never been outside Scotland, never been on a plane. And I flew all the way to Rexburg, Idaho, to a Mormon school, which I didn't even know what Mormons were. And it was really a really difficult time for me to be on my own at the age of 17. But it was the big push that I needed, and it was the right decision because it gave me the opportunity to actually be an athlete. You know, all your schooling was put around your training, and so you were actually able to enjoy your education, but at the same time be supported to be an athlete. And I won every national title that was available at junior college, and then I got very highly recruited from all the 4-year Division 1 schools, and then I went on to Alabama, and sort of like the rest is history. You know, I ended up becoming, you know, Commonwealth champion and all that sort of stuff within that year of leaving Alabama. But the very sad thing about it was, all through my career as a kid, you know, there's only one person that ever said to me that I could be good. Everybody else, even the teachers at the school and that, were always really negative towards me, like your brains and your feet, you'll never do nothing. And there was only one person that ever said, you know, I could achieve something and be good. And it was Harry. And unfortunately for me, he actually died when I was just before my 18th birthday. So he never actually got to see everything that he had actually set up and fulfilled in me, because it's all his ethos that makes me the person and the coach that I am today about athletics. And it's just really, really sad that you never got to see any part of that. But I always say there's always one person, doesn't matter what side of the tracks you're on, there's always one person that can just say that one thing to you that can actually change your life. And he was the one person that did that for me.
And you know, Eilish also spoke very kindly about Harry Bennett for me. So there's obviously, it's maybe been a topic of conversation or inspiration or belief, like you've just described, that you spoke about a lot, because it's embedded in Eilish as well, you know. But yeah, I've got to say something. That's probably the best introduction I've ever had on Young Hearts Run Free. So thank you very much for that. It was like a wee trip back in time for myself, because you're the first person that's mentioned YTS, Maggie Thatcher, jute mills, the Mormon religion. And thank God you put Harry Bennett in there, because I'm thinking, like, what good's coming out of this? But Harry Bennett is the man. Harry Bennett is the man.
He was, yeah.
I think, you know, but even, and I told, we said at the start that we sent you a set of questions. We'll not stick to them. So here we go. This is me right off the path at the start.
Okay.
Going to America at a very young age must have felt quite intimidating. How was that? You were a young girl, weren't you?
Yeah, it was really tough for me, because I'd never been, like, I'm the youngest of 4 siblings, and I've never been away from my family at all. And although we didn't have a lot, we've always been a very close family. And for me to be the first one to actually leave, you know, like even from my older brothers and my older sister, you know, they were all about. And, you know, I was the first one to actually leave, and I felt very isolated, and I felt, you know, I was getting forced to do something I really, really didn't want to do. And, you know, I had no control over it. You know, I literally was just pushed out the country on a plane. You know, I remember sobbing all the way. Actually, we actually got a bus, stagecoach or something like that. It was like £1 getting down to London or whatever. So I had to sit for like goodness knows how many hours on a bus to London, and then I flew from London. And I just remember crying the whole time. And then I got put into this apartment with, you know, 5 other girls that I didn't know. And then it was announced that I had 7 Mormon brothers that would be my brothers that would come round and teach me the teachings of the Mormon religion. So that again was another, you know, big eye opener to, you know, becoming independent and sort of getting my own ideas and my own thoughts, and, you know, sort of standing up for myself, and becoming, you know, a strong independent woman rather than a young child that was getting led from pillar to post, getting told what to do. And it was a really, it really was, I'd say the first 6 months was like, I just wanted to go home. You know, I was like heartbroken. You know, I was phoning every night, and my dad's phone was cut off, so then I couldn't call home. I felt very, very isolated. And then it wasn't until, you know, I gave myself the time to get into my running it. So the running it saved me again. You know, it was me getting into my running that, you know, I got into a routine, and then I could start seeing the balance of what I was doing was really good. And then obviously made friends with the girls I was sharing the apartment with, got into the way of life there, and got by, you know. But it was very, very difficult for me, and it took me a long time to settle. But I was fortunate that, you know, I there was a good group of girls around me, and you know, they were quite understanding. Oh, you know, I was very young to be away, I think, in that kind of environment. But you know, as I say, I think in the long run, it really made me grow up very, very quickly, and gave me an independence that, you know, I had to do what was right for me. And, you know, and I think that you know, I became very strong-willed and aware of what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, and you know, that kind of forced me into that, to be honest.
See those girls that you shared an apartment with, are you still in touch with any of them? Did you ever?
No, no, because it sounds really silly here too. They all fell out with me because I fell in love with Eilish's dad, and he wasn't a Mormon.
Ah, there you
He
go.
was Irish.
That leads us on to the next question, because that cultural sort of shock that,
Yeah,
you know, going for working in a jute mill at 5:30
yeah,
in the morning in Dundee to going to Idaho to being in a university that's, you know, Mormon is the religion. Most of the students I'm hearing.
yeah.
Could you get much different ends of the scale
Yeah, I
in the
think
Western world? I don't know.
it was quite good because it was very restricted, and I was only 17. You know, could you imagine if you were 17 and going to, you know, like somewhere that's like California and it's all party, and, you know, you're hanging out, and, you know, you've
Yeah.
got your alcohol and your drugs and all that sort of stuff. So in a way, it was actually quite restrictive. The first thing I found really hard was I wasn't allowed to drink coffee, so I used to sort of hide my coffee and, you know, feel like I was
Contraband.
taking it all. And then, you know, and I had a few, you know, I was the most fined student because I would run from my apartment with a pair of shorts on training, so they would fine me for wearing shorts, but I'm running. So I'm like, well, how do I run if I don't wear shorts, and all this sort of thing? Because I don't think they were very used to having a lot of international people there either. But I think there was more benefits for me than negativity, to be honest.
No, I see what you mean.
You know,
That discipline almost helped.
It did give me restrictions that I was very young, and you know, I had to focus on education and then running, and that's what I did. That's, you know, that's how I kind of managed my way through. And then, as I say, you know, I won every national title there, so, you know, it was really good for me to be there. And then I got recruited from all the other sort of Division 1 schools. So although it was a different religion for me, and quite difficult to sort of maneuver your way through it, there were more benefits than negativity about it.
I never knew that part of your story.
Yeah.
This is absolutely fascinating. And we've got to say as well, nowadays, everybody's used to Teams and Zoom and FaceTime and video call. There was none of that back then. So
No.
you'd be real isolated, you know.
Yeah, and when my dad's phone got cut off, that made it like really bad. It's like no communication at all. You're waiting on the airmail. I don't know if you remember. You used to get like air envelopes that were blue and had a little plane on them with like red dots, and I used to wait on them coming like every 10 days.
Folk will be listening to this going, airmail? What's that? You know, but I remember airmail. Aye, definitely. I had a couple of pals who
in my head.
Aye, I had a couple of pals who went abroad, and that's how we communicated, because nobody had the only phone you had was the phone that, well, in my house, it sat in the lobby in the house, and there was a lock on it, so I couldn't use it anyway. So that was that. So listen, can we say a wee bit? Can we give Harry Bennett a wee bit of time? Can we speak about Harry Bennett and his influence on you, Liz?
Yeah, Harry was like a 800-meter runner in his sort of like army days, and when he was in the army, he won like titles and things like that. And he worked in DC Thompson's for all his days that I knew him. He was married to Val, and he had 2 sons. And his sons and that never ran or anything, but they were very supportive, because he was the type of guy that every Sunday it would always be us lot all going round to his house talking athletics and getting tea and biscuits, that type of thing. So the family was always very supportive of him, and he was just one of these like if he hadn't been around then, the Dundee Hawk Harriers wouldn't be what it is today. He was secretary, he was president, he was coach, he was bus driver, he was just everything in the club. He was just passionate about running, and I think he was really ahead of his time. Like, for instance, when he started coaching me, I'd only be like 13 or something, be throwing like The Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner books to me and saying, read that. And then when we'd be training, he'd be like quizzing me, well, why do you think you're doing, this session, and what do you think you're going to get out of it? So he was always like challenging you to think about, he wasn't just taking a bunch of, me anyway, he didn't ever just take me and let me just run. It was like he was kind of trying to educate me on why I'm doing it and the reason to do it and why it's good for me and why it's not, but and what type of runner I am and how I'm going to get better. He was always like feeding things to you. But just a big character, like, he wouldn't take any, like, one of the instances I remember at the track was a girl called Lorraine. She must have been about 13. He hated anybody cursing. Could you imagine, like the kids where we came from on the council estate would always be cursing, and you just wouldn't allow it in the group that we had. And so, he once said to us, it's not even the word, it's the intention of the word. He says, so, it doesn't have to be a curse word, but if you're saying something to me and it's meant in another, well, to me, that's cursing. So this girl, thinking she was smart, was like, you would do a training, you'd always get somebody with, as it gets tough, the curse or whatever. So she started like, apples. And he's like, Lorraine, what are you saying? And she's like, nothing, coach. And then she'll go, apples, as if like, F off you sort of thing. And so he went and got carbolic soap, and like he chased her and he caught her and he actually washed her mouth out with carbolic soap. Wouldn't be allowed to do that.
No.
But if any of the kids that I still the one good thing, I do keep in touch with the kids that I trained with, which is like really odd. There's a couple of girls that ran for as long as what I did, Anne Jameson and Alison Carr, and even to this day, you could ask them and we all remember that day where he did this. But he was just a figure that everybody held, and whatever he said, we just hung on his every word, because he was just a very charismatic figure in a lot of like poverty-stricken kids. He was like the leader that gave you the opportunity, and was always like supportive and always encouraging, and a lot of kids didn't even get that at home, and he's just one of these like community guys that were and I always think he was just well ahead of his time as far as the sport was concerned.
Aye, I'm glad we've taken that time to give Harry his place, because he's obviously played a big part in your life and a number of kids' lives, So
a lot of people. A lot of the people that I still know from my Harrier days always have fond memories of Harry, massively. And as I say, the club, the Hawkhill Harriers, would not be there today if it wasn't for him and these, you know, in the years that he put in. Voluntary as well, by the way. You know, we all go on about voluntary, he paid, and but you know, he worked a full-time job. He picked me up on his motorbike, you know, in his lunchtime. He just gave his time up freely, you know, and even his family. You know, we interrupted a lot of his family time going down, and you know, like I got bullied a lot at school, and one of the girls at the school had organised, like there was a girls gang that used to go around beating people up, and she'd organised them to come and, you know, go after me. So they try and meet me after school, so they beat me up, and I used to have to run like 3 miles to get out of the way. And as soon as Harry heard about it, he was like, "No, you come down, you meet me, and I walk through that park with you." And he was just great, you know, and to help you through it.
Aye, brilliant. You know what, you hear about, well, Stephen and I are probably our main sporting interest out of running is football, but you hear about football teams. We've all played for football teams where you've got that, there's always that person that they give up pretty much their life for that team, and they stay with them probably all their life, you know. So like Harry's one of these guys. And the Hawkhill Harriers are still a very, very strong club, you know. So I'm assuming Harry's spoken about still to this very, very day. And the Hawkhill Harriers, if they're listening, they'll be loving this content. This is absolutely brilliant for them. But you know what? If we can now. Oh, you still there, Liz?
Yeah, I'm just going to have to get a charger because my phone's going down very quickly.
No bother. You okay for me to keep talking, or do you want me to wait?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things going on from speaking about Harry, we know Eilish said to us that you're involved with coaching in Doha. So how do we, and one of the things we spoke about with Eilish as well was about how we keep young people interested in sport. Do you want to say a wee bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think like sports like it's a bit out here in Doha. The sport Doha's very, very quickly developed over the years. It's not like Scotland's got like years and years of history behind it. Like, you know, oil and gas was only like found here maybe 40 years ago. So even just up to like 50 years ago, a lot of the people were desert, you know, like nomads. Like, you know, they'd be in the desert with sort of herding camels and stuff like that, and, you know, sort of like wandering around. And, you know, 50 years is a very, very short space of time to actually you know, develop. And when it comes that quickly, you know, you had your McDonald's, and whereas they had like really healthy lifestyles, they suddenly went into the richness of McDonald's and fast food and So there's a lot of diabetes and lack of exercise because they've never been in the same process as what we do, even in schools and things. Like, you know, it's just all got introduced over the last, I'd say, like 25 years. So sport here just now is developing so quickly. There's so many people now taking part in sport: football, triathlons, swimming, running, horse riding's huge. You know, paddle, that's another big one that's happening. So it's a nation now that's just really getting caught in all the energy of what sport brings. And now even in the schools, you know, they're realising how exercise is just as important as education, and it should be running side by side. So for me, it's been really good to be, you know, I've been here 10 years, and over that 10 years, myself and my husband John have both seen a massive growth in the industry that we do, but not just in the industry, and it's not for elite, it's actually about people being healthy and fit and active first. And then along the way, you find these little gems every now and again that are, you know, you just think, oh, wow. You know, we've had a couple of kids that we've been fortunate to sort of say, oh, wow, they're really good, and we'll put them in touch with the national body. But it's such a transit place here as well, because people come and work, but they only really work for 4 or 5 years. They never stay a lifetime. It's very rarely, like, you know, even for myself and John being here 10 years, there's not a lot of people that you'll talk to that have been here that long. So the frustrating side of it is we can't hold on to them.
Yeah.
But the great thing of it is that we can give them the building skills to actually get into it. And I've been really lucky that I've worked with a couple of really motivated Qatari native people now that are really getting into fitness, and they're starting to sort of bring the level up, especially in athletics. You know, I coach the fastest native Qatari man, and I mean he's in his 30s now, but you know he never ran when he was young. You know, he started running like 4 or 5 years ago, and he loves it. So you actually think, oh, you know, they've missed out on a lot of what exercise gives you, but they're catching up very quickly. And you know, even development of stadiums and facilities, it's all getting developed really quickly. So I would imagine in the next 10, 15 years, you'll start to be getting some pretty good athletes, not just for running, but for other sports coming out of Qatar.
Yeah.
That sort of in the change in the mindset of the nation and the culture around about what sport brings, not just from an elite aspect, but also right through, you know, just as part of your day to day. Sounds like. But I've got a question that and you just spoke about it briefly there, Liz. That infrastructure, and we all see the amount of money getting spent in these countries. You know, we've seen it at the recent World Cup. You know, all these stadiums popping up and stuff. Is that sort of almost legacy of the oil money being invested into the infrastructure?
Well, it's like one of the legacies of the World Cup, which I think is like fantastic, is they're a way to build the first academy of sport for women. And within that academy of sport for women, they actually now have got pathways that actually comes from the schools. So they're going to be to set up academies in the schools for coaching for women, girls, also boys, but with the emphasis on the girls. And then, you know, the pathway then goes to create from the schools to create clubs for women, and then creates like the opportunity to maybe in 10 years time or whatever have those women at elite level, and or at least teams playing at good levels. But you know what, it's like that old, you know, it's that sort of old saying of like, you know, you've always got to start at your grassroots. You've got to build it from the bottom up. There's no shortcuts in success. No matter what you do in life, there's no shortcuts. You've got to do the groundwork at the base level. And I think that this is where Qatar now is starting to get themselves sorted. You know, they're starting to invest in the schools, invest in the sort of the club level, and then hopefully, because a lot of these countries, like, you know, other sort of Middle Eastern countries and whatever, they for years they've kind of just sort of, it's like that passport for sport, you know, they bring people in, whereas, you know, now people don't want to do that. You know, nations are saying, no, we want our guys, we want our people to be good at sport. And I think that's what's really good about it. They're actually investing in their own, and the grassroots level is definitely growing. And I, you know, the 10 years I've been here, see a massive difference. The activation level of like sport is just building so quickly. There's people that I see doing triathlon that you would never think of doing triathlon, you know, on bikes. Like cycling is really popular, and they've just built this 56 mile cycle track, no traffic, no break in the road, just straight out and back. So you know, it's I always say it takes time to build, but if you invest properly, then you know you get the results at the end of the day. And it's just, I think it's quite exciting to be, you know, to have seen that kind of evolve, and you know, who knows where it will eventually go, you know, in the future. But I mean, they've had, you know, I thought the World Cup, I thought they did really well in it. I thought it was a great championships. You know, they've got the FIFA World Championships coming, so they've got lots of other things happening. And if you know, if you have championships like that, then it only sparks interest for the people that are watching it. You know, they all want to have a go, want to try it, and that's how you inspire or motivate, you know, people to get involved. And I, you know, I can see that happening here now.
It's like the master plan often in countries, and this is I suppose a view that maybe we have sitting here in Europe or the UK or Scotland or Ochterarder, if you want, right, is that it's that instant. They just want everything in an instant, like tomorrow. Okay, and you mentioned that there was around about buying, almost just investing instant, even the McDonald's arriving was instant. You know, the last 50 years is just a blink of an eye, and it's like, oh, we want a world-class football team instantly. Like, well, no, that's like a 40-year project or whatever. But that the culture that they've been, I suppose, used to in the last 50 years is that, oh, we want to build the biggest, tallest building in the world. Well, we'll do that tomorrow.
Yeah, I know. But in sport, you can't do that.
Exactly, and that's the message that I'm hearing.
It's your 12-year-olds of today that will be your future champions in 10 years' time, because that's how long it takes to build a champion. It doesn't happen overnight. But
when they've got people like you, Liz, people like you involved in it and inspiring as well, you know, that shows that, well, okay, who can inspire more than somebody who's been there and done it and walked the walk.
But as I say, like over here, like even some people, like they wouldn't even know that I've won London or New York or got medals and things, you know, because, you know, it's still a culture, or you know, they're still like just getting into all of that. So like, you know, a lot of the people that I would coach, if you say Eilish has ran 30 minutes, they'd be like totally blown away for a 10K, because, like, you know, the local elite here probably runs for women 40 minutes, and for men you're talking 34 minutes, 33 minutes, you know. But that's the sort of bridging that you've got to build towards. But that's the same in Dubai, and it's the same, you know, in a lot of the Middle East, because we're just starting to get into what that sport's about. And training, especially for endurance running, you know, I was saying endurance runners made. You're never born an endurance runner, you're made an endurance runner, and it takes a lot of time and effort to do it.
This is a perfect segue into what I'm going to speak about.
Right?
I
know. I've seen John's eyes light up.
Well, I'm interested if Liz moves so she can get the cups in over her shoulder. We can speak about them in a wee minute, right? But
I moved just with the plug.
But you know what, Stephen was talking about the doing stuff in the blink of an eye, but that where you are, they're certainly moving at almost warp speed to bring this in, aren't they? Because they will have learned a lot from what's been done across the world, and I'm sure they've researched stuff about, and that thing about the 56-mile cycle track, that'll reap great rewards eventually. And the World Cup.
Can you run on that?
Yeah, that's where Eilish runs when she comes over.
Perfect. That's good then. So just for cyclists.
It's a shared path. The World Cup, although there was all the big furore about the World Cup, it was one of the best football tournaments I think there's ever been. And it's the same as when you're a kid. I'm talking about me as a kid in Scotland. Whenever Wimbledon was on, you would somewhere find a tennis racket and go and play tennis for about a month or 6 weeks, you know? So the whole sport thing, it's a magical thing that happens when there's a sporting tournament on. And we're going to move on and speak about athletics and things like that as well. But it inspires children. It's keeping them inspired, I think, is the challenge.
That's why it's important. Yeah, but that's why it's important that children see sport, you know, and that they see it high level, because it's kind of like, you know, until you see Serena Williams hit that racket, you never realize how hard she hits that ball. You know, if you're there and you're seeing it, you're like, wow, I mean, what strength and power is that? But it's the same with any sport. You know, if you see it, it then just wants you to be part of it, and then it inspires you to go out and go for a run or not, or go for a bike or go for a swim. You know, and I think it is really, really important that, you know, you do have like championships and things like that on home soil. It's kind of like if you go to the Commonwealth Games when it was in Edinburgh, it would never have been such a great event for me if it wasn't in Edinburgh. I mean, I remember when they announced it was in Edinburgh, I was like, oh my days, it's just going to be like training on my own track, because I go through Edinburgh race all the time. And I was so disappointed when I first heard it, because like you're so used to going abroad all the time. And then I thought, well, I'm not going to run very well because I'm not going to be up for it. But as soon as you, like, the moment that the Scotland team were standing outside, and we were the last team introduced into the stadium, and the bagpipe stage, you could have felt every hair on the back of your neck, and you were just absolutely crapping yourself going into the stadium. And it was just an instant sort of like, this is nothing, to, oh my days, this is big for us. And it happens to my race. And Eilish said the exact same when she was in Birmingham. You know, just having that home crowd, you know, it inspires people by watching, but it also inspires the athletes that are competing there. And that's why it's important that you do get home games and home championships and things like that, because it inspires everybody, not just the people watching.
Right, Liz, hold the bus, right? We're going to go back and
Hold the bus.
Man, you talk about the hairs in the back of your neck. I can still... Right, okay.
John's got the hairs in the top of his head standing up.
Aye. Right, wait a wee minute. Where am I going to go? Right. It's very nearly London Marathon time. It's the spring marathon times. We've got Paris coming up. We've got London. We've got Manchester. All this sort of stuff.
John's in Manchester, was.
And I'm going to go personal just in a wee minute, right? But we've also just had Tokyo has just passed. And we had a couple of people that listen in. I'm going to give the Blingry Bolt a shout out here. John Beveridge just finished his 6th major. So fantastic achievement to do that. But here today, we've got somebody that's won the London Marathon, won the New York, won the Tokyo Marathon.
Yeah.
And ran at the Olympics and the World Championships and Commonwealth Games. So
and you know,
here's
Chicago, I get my 6th major as well, because I've actually been doing it with a friend. I've actually been pacing a friend. So I've did London again and Tokyo again. I did Tokyo as well. But I'm actually with a friend because I'm trying to motivate her because she's going to be the first Qatari woman to have
brilliant.
the 6 majors, which is a massive thing here. So I'm actually running around with her.
Brilliant.
Well, listen. Chicago this year.
Sorry?
Did you say you're doing Chicago?
Yeah, this is us finished in Chicago. That's us got our 6. This coming October.
Stevie Boy's going to be there. He'll take you for pizza after.
We're there.
Cool. I'll WhatsApp you.
Right, I'll hate to get. They're signing up for Chicago. Right, okay. But
God, you can be the water boy.
As usual, what I want to ask you though is, right, and this is not just for me, but it's for everybody who's training for a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
Just now, my last long run was 23 miles on Saturday. At about 18, 19 miles, it started hurting like hell, right? Really sore all on my body.
Yeah.
Do you just have, well, actually, you can only speak for you. Do you just have to suck up that pain, or does eventually the pain not happen? Like what I mean is running 26.2 miles, does it end up getting the pain come later on at 24, 25 miles? Or is it just going to happen? You're going to be sore at 19, 20. You've just got to crack on.
I think, it's very individually because it's all about your prep. Some people prepare better than others. Some people are more attuned to running marathons than others. A lot of people overdo what they need to do to get to the marathon, so they go in too tired. So it's like, you can have 101 reasons why that happens, but when you're preparing for the marathon, what you've got to do is prepare well for you. And obviously nutrition's a massive thing. A lot of people do go in under nutrition is not good for going for the whole 42k, and just by doing it on the day, and the race isn't right either. So I've had some people overdo the carbohydrates, I've had people underdo the carbohydrates, overdo the gels. So it's practicing what you're going to do on your long runs as well, and it's about not doing too many long runs as well, so that you don't go in too tired and leg heavy. And a lot of people get just too caught up with a lot of this online coaching that tells you what to do, and what they don't know is what your lifestyle is. So it's looking at your working day and your running ability and getting a really healthy balance between that plus your nutrition. And if you do all 3 right, you should manage it. Yeah. If you don't do all 3 right, then yeah, you're going to get aches and pains and whatever. But I always say that it's a battle of the wills over the last 10k. My advice to people is always, like, when you're training for the marathon, your marathon pace, but you've got to get to 30k as easy as possible, not as slow as possible, but as comfortable as possible for you at the pace that you're doing. And then the last 10k is mind games. You've just got to get into that zone, and it's pushing through it. I mean, I've been very fortunate that I don't build that like lactic where, you know, the glycogen loss or whatever, whether it's genetic or whatever. I never got that like really heavy pains in my legs and tiredness that I couldn't run. But there was one time when I finished second in the marathon. The night before I fell. I'd been crossing the road to go and get something out of the shop, some drinks or something, and I slipped on the curb and I twisted. I was going to hit my face and I twisted round, so I hit my elbow and sort of twisted. And when I started the marathon, I was getting sore stomach, like really sharp pains. And after the first drink, I thought, oh, something's wrong with my drink. So I didn't drink it at all for the rest of the run. And I must have been lying in about ninth, and we ran past the Athletes Hotel, which was the Tower Bridge Hotel or something. And it, like, you run past it as you go halfway, you know, Tower Bridge, and it's like right there. And I thought, right, I'm just going to stop and I'm going to go through. But as I came through in about 9th or 10th place, it was packed with people and I couldn't stop because they were all shouting on your name. And then I went out to the Isle of Dogs and I came back and I was going to stop again. And then again, I couldn't stop because like it was packed with people all under Tower Bridge and everything. And then I thought to myself, stop feeling sorry for yourself. So I then started like just really pushing it. And I went from 9th to about 800 meters to go. I was second place. And then I started like just putting the boot down, and I caught Joyce Chipchumba, and I was in absolute agony because my stomach was so sore. And then just like, it was the closest ever finish from the marathon, and she came back to me and beat me by like less than a second. And I remember Tom Bever was saying, oh shit, if Liz hadn't been messing about with her watch, she would have won it. And I'm like, you don't even, to this day, he still doesn't know that I actually tore my soleus muscle in my tummy and had to run the whole race with a torn muscle. And I didn't find out until I went to see a doctor 3 days after the marathon, and I was out for about 8 weeks because the muscle was torn and it was a hard one to heal. But, you know, I always say, like, a marathon is mind games. It's like, you know, it's a roller coaster. 1 minute you're feeling great, the next I want to stop and walk. I feel great, I feel bad, I feel great, I feel bad. I don't think anybody could ever say they've ran the whole 42 feeling absolutely fantastic and on top of the world. But it's how you develop sort of coping skills to get through it. And I'm a big believer in, I chat to myself when I run. I think Eilish does as well. So, like, you know, if you get a sore leg, I'll be like, trying to relax my leg, try to relax my leg. You've only got another K, you've only got another K, and things like that, just to try and ease it out a bit. But marathon training is very individual, and it's about finding the way to train that really suits you. But nutrition's so important as well going into it, massively important. Fluids, what you're taking on board, what you eat 3-4 days out, all of that counts.
Brilliant.
And back.
That was properly. a wee personal 1-to-1 session for me there. That was bra. That was bra. And I think I'm doing all right. 2 out of 3 I've nailed. That running ability, it's letting me down. But we'll work on that. Got 4 weeks. We'll be fine.
Sunday, John.
Oh, I know. Okay. Didn't freak me out, man.
Got your last run coming up now then?
I'm doing a 20-miler this weekend, and then I think I'm doing another longer run 2 weeks out from the marathon. That's what I'm planning. I think that's what the plans are. All but right. You know what though? Sorry, I'm digressing into John time, but I'm quite happy there. I'm recovering quicker now from a long run than I was, so I think that's a good thing. That's a sign that I'm improving. So yeah, it's all going in the right direction. Thank you for asking.
He's doing that stretchy stuff, as he calls it. Non-stretchy stuff.
Stretchy stuff, resistance bands. It's all new to me, all that, carry on. But it's paying dividends. Anyway, let's get back. You mentioned earlier on about Edinburgh, 1986. And I think that probably is where the fire was lit, I think, with regards to the Commonwealth Games come to Edinburgh, and you spoke about that. What was it like? Stephen often speaks about when there's a finish line in a race, it's almost like there's a laser beam or a beam pulling you in. And we spoke with Eilish about this in Birmingham. What was it like for you running in front of your home crowd in that 10,000 metres? And was it 1986? I think it was 1986, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, it was amazing. Like, it's kind of touched a bit on it, like, you know, how sort of like overnight it just came, oh my days, like we're really in the thick of it here. But for me, it was hard. Well, it was hard because like you know, the Scottish team was staying in the halls of residence in Edinburgh. You know, the students' accommodation, and we were sort of every night you sort of had your own little team meeting, and people were coming back really disappointed because you know certain people were hoping to make finals and get medals and whatever, and they didn't. And like on my day, there was 3 medals up for grabs. It was Tom McKean, Yvonne Murray, and myself. And Tom McKean didn't do it. He came back, and then Yvonne had I wouldn't say she had a bad run, but you know, she didn't win it either. And I remember sitting with Hilda Everett, who was the team manager, and like when you go out, you don't want to sort of be around anything negative. And I sort of saw that Yvonne hadn't won, and I knew that she'd be disappointed, so I didn't want to see her coming back. You know, I wanted to avoid at all costs. You know, like sort of somebody being disappointed and me going out to race. And I'd sort of managed to avoid everybody. And then Hilda came in and she says to me, "Oh, Liz, well, you're our last hope." I kind of just felt the weight of the world come down on me. I'd done so well, avoiding everybody, and I was like, "Oh, Jesus, yeah, okay." So I kind of walked out thinking, you know, I am the last hope of a gold medal on the track. And but it's funny, like when you're on song, and you know it, you know, in your head you know it, and you know you're going to win before you even do it. And it was one of those days where I knew I was going to win it. There was just something so installed in me that I knew what I was going to do, and I knew I was going to win it. And you know, the girl, the New Zealand girl that actually was second, Anna Dane, I mean, you know, no disrespect for her, she was the best 10k runner in the world that year. But I was just so confident that, you know, I'm going to go out and run. And you know, it was a rainy day. Some people left because of the rain, because they obviously didn't think I was going to win. You know, but as the race went on, you could actually feel the atmosphere change from like sort of doom and gloom to, oh, geez, something's happening here. You know, and nobody ever watches 25 laps. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of bored, isn't it? Like, and so, you know, as I went round, I could sort of feel the energy getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I mean, the last, I'd say, I knew from a key out I was winning it, and it was just a matter of when do I go, and I was holding back. And then about 800 meters to go, I just thought, it was just so loud, I just thought, stuff it in my way, and I went. And it was like having 2 laps of honour, you know, the idea lap of honour. It was just so loud, and all you could hear, you couldn't hear people, but you heard the buzz. It was just so noisy. And it was like the beginning to the end, because it was such a great atmosphere. I mean, I remember when I won, I was sitting underneath the tunnel, and I thought everybody would go home because it's like raining and everything. And all you could hear was people shouting my name, and I was underground waiting to come up to get my medal. And it was just an amazing feeling, you know, having to hear people shouting your name and stuff. Because, you know, I was like a young girl, you know, just first ever major championship from Whitfield, and there's people shouting my name. It's never happened to me before. So it was like, it was unreal. It just seemed it wasn't happening to me. And then when I went up, you know, everybody was still there and whatever. But for me, it was just, nothing ever lived up to it again. I mean, even when I won at Tokyo, my world medal, and, you know, they're playing the anthem and all that sort of stuff, it wasn't the same because there wasn't people there to share it with. And like when you've got success, it's the sharing of it that makes it like the emotional attachment and, you know, all this. And so I never ever really lived up to that moment, a glory or whatever you want to call it, that happened in Edinburgh, because it was the first time it ever happened to me. And you know, you had, like, I had my dad there, I had my mum there, I had aunties and uncles that never ever watched. My dad never watched me running. He thought he was a jinx, so he would never watch me running. So even during the Commonwealth Games, he walked out the stadium, and an uncle of mine had to go back and get him and say, "She's smashing it. You need to come and see it because she is going to win it." And he actually, it's the first time he ever saw me win anything. And so, you know, having all that to share, but just having the people there, you know, the flags waving and all that. And it's one of those moments that you just cherish, you know, it's in your heart, and it's like, it's about being Scottish. I don't know, you know, that's just what it meant. And it was just never ever happened to me again. And so for me, for it to happen to Eilish in Birmingham was just like so emotional again. And to me to be actually like, I'm kind of like my dad's shoe then, like, you know, like jumping about like a maniac. But it was just another unreal experience to see a young'un do that. You know, a kid, you know, my baby doing that, what I did. It's just like crazy. It's mind blowing. It's like you just can't believe it happened. And in the same kind of atmosphere, because even in Eilish's race, it was the same thing. You could just hear it getting louder and louder. It's like, when's she going to get dropped? Oh, she's not going to get dropped. You know, you could just feel it building, building, building. And that's what's great about sport, eh? You know, it's you get those golden moments and something you can treasure for the rest of your days.
You're going to hear sort of greeting in a minute. But I know what, we'll get to Eilish in a minute, but I want to go back. You set yourself a pretty high benchmark with regards to winning, but doing it in '86 at the Commonwealth Games in Edinburgh. And you're right, you mentioned about being Scottish. We're a proud nation, us Scots, you know. And to everybody that went home because it was raining, hell mend them. You know what I mean? Missing out on that. Because I can still, I didn't have to go and watch it on the internet, because I can still remember watching it. You know, I can still picture it in my head.
11-year-old I was, and
Yeah.
I remember it, and it was just that groundswell of interest that you sparked in sport and athletics. So even for me, I was 11-year-old. Football was everything, you know. And then apart from the Wimbledon week and then the British Open golf week, where I was obviously like, you know, picked up a golf club and a tennis racket. But I remember having the little mascot bug. You know, you used to put them on the top of your monitor, like a little bug with and a key ring, and that was because of you. Do you know that interest was spite? And I was like, oh, what's this Meadowbank Stadium? There's only Easter Road and Tynecastle stadiums in Edinburgh and Murrayfield. What's this Meadowbank? What's this all about? And and she just, and it's like it was yesterday, and that was you know, a lot of years ago.
It was a lot. Tell me about it.
Yeah, but it seems like yesterday, and that, like what John just said there about it. I didn't have to go back and watch that on YouTube. I can still picture it in my head as an 11-year-old. That's mad.
It's brilliant, absolutely fantastic.
And also, it didn't just perk up the interest in the sport of athletics. It just perked up the nation's interest in sport.
Yeah,
and everything.
And it also, it probably swelled the heart of the whole nation for being Scotland. You know. I don't know how many great Scottish athletes. Well, I know there's been a lot of great Scottish athletes, but at that time it was almost like, come on, you can do anything. When your heart's filled with joy like that, you can do anything, absolutely anything. So thank you very much for that, and thank you for describing it as you did. That's brilliant.
The football team had already let us doing that year in Mexico. It's just the usual.
Right, if you didn't mind, we'll speak about your bairn, Eilish, because yes, I know, we know there are other children, and if you want to give them a shout out, that's absolutely cool, right? But going back to that tractor beam or that laser beam thing that draws you into the line, we've seen the video that Eilish shared from both ends of the stadium, and there's a video. I don't know who took the video from behind you. But Eilish is running doing that back straight towards you. It's almost like you're the laser beam sucking her doing that line. But what did that, well, you can speak about the race or you can speak about that last straight. What did that feel like, seeing your daughter do that?
You know what, it was one of these surreal moments. And I think, like, you know, obviously I've coached Eilish, daughter aside, I've coached Eilish since she was 12 years old. And I've been part of her team where I've heard people say that she's never going to make it, she's not good enough. I've seen the injuries that she's picked up, and people say you'll never run again. And for Eilish, and I don't know whether it is because I won it or whatever, Eilish has always had a thing in her head about winning a medal at the Commonwealth Games. It's something she's always, 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 from a young kid, wanted to do, and I don't know why. And so, you know, going into that race, like, you know, you can be in good shape, and you know you're in good shape, and you know, yeah, I should get a medal, but you also need lady luck. And that lady luck is probably 99% of the time never there. You know, you can train your heart out, your heart and your soul. You get on that start line. I mean, it's happened to me where, you know, you get tripped up, you pull a muscle, you get a cold the day before. You know, you need a bit of luck on your side as well. And it doesn't happen too often where you get that race where everything goes your way. And so for Eilish, I knew she was in really good shape, and we were always, even on a bad day, she should get a bronze. We were going for that bronze no matter what. But we always had in the insight, in distance running, the Kenyans, the Ethiopians are such a dominant force. They're the leaders of our field. And so you always know whenever there's going to be a Kenyan or an Ethiopian, that's your 1 and 2. And then you're going to be 3rd, 4th or 5th. That's kind of the way it's accepted because they are so dominant. So when we went into the race, the 2 girls, although the commentary said Eilish had a faster time, were actually faster than Eilish. One had won the cross country. The 2 of them had ran their times at altitude. So their altitude times were faster than Eilish was going in. So we knew she was up against it. But whenever Eilish is in a race with the Kenyans, she runs really, really strong. And then they tend to run the same way. They'll always put a big spurt in at some stage. And then, they'll settle down and then they'll put another surge in. And with Eilish, whether it's inexperience or lack of confidence, she never follows it. So my only thing that I said to her is, no matter what happens, follow it. Just give it, go with it, follow it. And it's the first time, like with about 8 laps to go, one of the Kenyan girls went and Eilish followed, and that's when I knew it was on, because she'd never done it before. And I knew it was another night. I was like, oof. That's when I moved down. I was like, ooh, something's going to happen here. And then, again, you could see, the second, I was like, definitely silver or gold, but it's on. I could see it. I could just see it building because she wasn't letting it go. She made the effort. She covered. And for me, that's been the defining moment of her career, because now she covers. She's not that same unconfident person because she knows she can do it now. And so the Commonwealth Games has been a big step up for her. And I thought the way in which she ran it was just, and Eilish keeps saying if the crowd wasn't there, I wouldn't have won it. But I think she would have, because she was on song that night. She was strong, she was powerful, and she wanted it more than the other girl. And that was the difference. But to be honest, the atmosphere was just unbelievable. And for me, I was really honoured to actually be in a stadium and see that for her, because she is my daughter. And it was like really emotional, and I don't know, pride, it goes beyond that, because, I gave birth to her and I've been with her every step of the way, and I've seen the disappointments and I've seen the bullying and I've seen the lack of confidence, and just to see her come together so strong as she did, as a strong woman, strong athlete, and take it to them, to me was just a defining moment.
Stephen, you hate to speak, I can't say anything.
I've lived it all again in my head over the last 90 seconds or so, as you've described that, was the final lap in particular. I think I speak for everybody, and there'd hardly be a dry eye in the house, as they say. And you go back and watch that final lap now, and it still is emotionally powerful. And for you to recount that as, and that's your daughter, as we say, is incredible. So thank you for describing that from your perspective, and that pride that is really, really apparent. It's I mean, I can only imagine what that's like. But that's
the thing for me. There's always there's a story to be told, like, no matter where you come from or how you get there. But a lot of people don't see the struggles that people do to get there. And a lot of people see Eilish now successful, and the thing that I think's exceptionally different from Eilish is that she acknowledges those troubles, and she's not afraid to stand up now and blatantly call these people out that used to do that to her as she was a youngster. And I think that when you see the success of someone overcome a lot of negativity. And you know, confidence is massive, not even just in girls, but it's massive in a lot of kids. You know, for whatever reason, lack of confidence is probably the biggest area where people, you know, fail to succeed. And you know, for me, Eilish has shown that, you know, you can grow, you can go above that. It doesn't matter what people think about you, what they say about you, you know, and how hurt you can be by that, but you can grow by it and you become that stronger, better person. And that's what I see in Eilish today. You know, I've just got a lot of, not because she's my daughter, but I've got a lot of respect for her because I know the story. I know, you know, I've seen how people bullied her. I see what happens on Instagram, and I just think, you know, she doesn't shy away from what she is and what she's become, but she actually shares that pathway, and I think that helps a lot of people. And you know, well, games just sort of emphasizes that type of story because, you know, just the way that it played out, and you know, she never gave up and she kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. You know, she had success, and you know, it goes back to what I said, you know, ages ago in the interview. You know, success is made and built. You know, it's not born, it's not a given. It's what you direct your life to be, to how successful you become. And if you let others like take away bits of that or bits of you, then you never become your true self. And I think that Eilish has really just blossomed into this really strong woman that I think that a lot of people can actually relate to. And I think, you know, if she could do it, well, why the heck can the next person not do it, you know? And for me, you know, it always resonates with me because I was once that kind of person as well. But when I was growing up and when I got success, people were saying to me, oh, she's overtraining, or she's overly confident, or, you know, there was always some excuse that they would say against me even when I was successful. But with Eilish, I can see that she's actually got the right balance where people do actually resonate with her and say, you know what you're portraying and what you are is really good for motivation and inspiration and all that sort of stuff. Whereas when I was sort of doing it, I kind of got a lot of negativity about it.
And we're living in a different world, you know, 30 years apart, and that whole Instagram, social media, instant, you know, gratification that people get. But I see that Eilish has turned that round into a positive for herself and a driver, you know, for her motivation as well, to say, I'll prove them wrong. Because you're right, there's always somebody going to bring you down, especially if you're successful, whether it's in sport, business, whatever. You always like somebody, but there's always an but, isn't there? It's a Scottish British mentality to get you down for your peg a wee bit. But she's almost, you know, and whether it's just that running maturity or, you know, or being grounded for your background and, you know, and stuff, it's blossoms, the word you used, and I think that is exactly how I describe it as well, just viewing that sort of evolution from the outside. She's blossomed, and she's, you know, she's far from finished, is she? She's got a big race coming up next month.
She's got London Marathon next month, and then hopefully step up to the marathon. I mean, I don't want her to be finished with 10k running yet, because I think she's still got, you know, you think she can break that. Well, yeah, she can definitely break 30 minutes. And I would like her, for her own like sort of ability and acknowledgement, to actually do that, because I think she's a capable runner for sub 30, which would be a big thing. But she definitely has got another good few years in her, and then whatever, you know, she kind of does from that, we'll see. But I think she's still got a lot of, she's still enjoying her running, and I think too, because of the injuries that she got as a youngster, she's not got the miles in the bank like a lot of marathon and distance runners have. It's kind of what I was saying, a lot of people kind of overdo the miles. Eilish is only, like, you know, she's quite fresh as far as mileage is. Like, up until like a year and a half ago, she was still only running like 60 miles a week, cross training on top of that, but that's like non-impact. But so this year's the first year she's actually stepped it up. She's did a couple of 100 miles, and I'm glad she has, because that gives her confidence that her foot's strong, because she's got a lot of pins and everything, and she's got a metal sort of like navicular cradle over that. So you know, I think even now she's still gaining confidence in what she's capable of doing. So yes, so hopefully the next few years will be quite interesting.
Well, John and I are trying to coax her along to Perth to run 50k round the Inch, and the North Inch in Perth, Liz, if you're familiar with that. So she's more than welcome to join us.
They still do the 50k North Inch, yeah?
Yeah, well, it's every 3 years they have the Anglo-Celtic Plate, which is that's 100k, you know, for Scotland, and they have a 50k championship on at the same time. It starts around about, so the 100kers go at like 7 AM and the 50k starts at 10 AM, so everybody kind of finishes around about the same time. So
unless you're me.
Unless you're John, because John's in his wee support tent more than he is out on the running.
No,
Getting his...
Remember they used to do a road race when I was younger, and everybody used to get so excited if it was Perth to Dundee, and they didn't do it anymore.
No, I've heard the legend of that.
Yeah, but so it's good that it's still going. Good to hear.
Yeah. I know it is. So, it's a popular one.
Open invitation. Eilish never took her up on the bring your ma, but you can bring your bairn if you want to come to Perth and run the North Inch. You can do that.
Give you Adrian Stott's details.
Yeah. Now, see, can I just go back, just when you were speaking about Eilish there, that what you've just described, Liz, is why we at Young Hearts Run Free, we champion Eilish as a role model. She does. She lives her life the way that is a positive, and I love the fact that she speaks out about the things that are in her head and how she's overcome them. But she's also, it's evident to me, she's had a great support to do that, and she's got that great belief. And man, what a year she had last year! It was quite phenomenal. And as you say, if you're excited about the next few years, man, how do you think we feel? Right. Okay, let's speak about, and one of the questions we asked Eilish was about, when we spoke with her, was about the difference in running, what's available to you, whether that's kit, whether that's science, whether it's nutrition. What was it like for you back in '86 with regards to running kit?
Not a lot, to be honest. So I was, well, actually, the running kit. The first running kit I got was a company in America called Kangaroos, and it was myself and Steve Ovett that were the runners. I got shoes. Steve Ovett was sponsored to the hilt, but and quite rightly, he's a good runner back then. But I got because I was in America, I got 3 shoes, whatever. And then I've kind of been through everybody, to be honest. I was sponsored from Reebok. I was sponsored from Nike. Got dropped from Nike when I was pregnant, but back then there wasn't any clause and contracts and everything for being pregnant and things. And then when I went to the World Championships in '90, when I just had Eilish, I met when you go to the championships, they have all these Nike houses and ASICS houses and New Balance, and people go around and they look at all the new shoes that are coming out and all that sort of stuff. So they have all their product on display, kind of like an expo. So you just walk around there and whatever. And I went into the ASICS one, and there was a Japanese guy. This was before my heats, actually. There was a Japanese guy, and I was asking about shoes or whatever, and he says, "Oh, who do you run with?" And I said, "I don't run with anybody." And he's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm doing the 10,000 meters." And he's like, "And you've got no sponsor?" And I'm like, "No." And so he actually signed me up there and then on the spot before the heats. And then, unfortunately for him, he had to pay me a bonus because I won the title.
I'm sure it was worth it.
I ended up, because he just sort of signed me there and then on the spot, he said, "Oh, you need to get a pair of spikes." And he had these all singing, all dancing, and I was like, no, I want these ones. And they were £14.99. They were the cheapest of the range that he had. And he was like, no, you can't wear them. You need to wear. And I'm like, no, I want them ones. So I won the title, and this is what he always laughs about. He's retired many years ago from it, but he always says, used to laugh about the pictures of me. I was probably one of the first athletes that my feet was so hot when I finished. I took my spikes off, and you see these £14.99 spikes. It's just a no title. It's so I got signed with ASICS, and I was kind of like the ASICS for the rest of my days. So that was quite a good connection when Eilish went and ran with ASICS. So it's you know, because they are a good family type of, you know, the guys that work for years and years, and you kind of get to know them and that. So ASICS was probably my main sponsor when I was actually like a professional athlete, when I was running from like the 89, 90, 98 right through.
And that evolution in especially shoes, let's talk about shoes, it's a special interest area for me, was and obviously super shoes and all that caper now. How do you feel about that? Do you use a carbon shoe now, or?
No, I don't. No.
Right. Okay.
I think that it's very individual again as to, you know, where you're at with it. But I mean, I was very against them when they all came out. And the reason I was against them when they all came out is because it was very unbalanced. You know, not every company had the carbon shoe, so athletes were running against athletes that they can normally beat, and then suddenly they're getting beaten because they had the best carbon shoes that Nike had to offer. But that's all by now, because it's pretty much a level playing field. Like most companies now all have the carbon shoes and their spikes and that sort of stuff. So that's kind of out by the out. But the only thing that I see a lot of people getting injured with them, because, like, you know, the carbon in the shoe actually stops your foot operating properly. So our plantar fascia is our spring. You know, that's how we use our foot. And when you use carbon, it actually puts more of the impact to the front of the shin and the ankle. So I see a lot of people that overtrain in carbon shoes and they get really bad shins and ankle pain because it's stopping them actually using the foot properly. And I think that they're great for racing. If you're doing, like, say, a specific time trial type of session that you want to nail, but I wouldn't use carbon shoes for everyday training. Just wouldn't do it.
Yep. No, I get that. I totally get it.
Eilish, you know, types of shoes that she wears. And the reason we don't want to get into carbon all the time too is because, like, you know, so, like, I want to know when she's getting fitter because she's getting fitter and not because of the shoes. You know, so I don't want a second difference on a mile because she's wearing a new carbon shoe. So we tend to kind of keep our sessions and everything so that we kind of know when the improvement's coming and when it's not. But she does race in them when she needs to race in them, and if it's a specific, like, time trial thing that we're wanting to do, she'll put them on.
I get that. It's almost like keep them as your secret weapon. For bring them out when you need everything in your armory. You
know, they obviously aid a lot in recovery. You know, if you're doing your long runs in them and that, you know, it doesn't take, you know, the muscles do recover quicker, and that's scientifically been proven. But you can also pick up pretty bad injuries from them.
Yeah. And your point around about, you know, so Nike were obviously the forerunners, let's call them, in this this world. But everybody's kind of caught up now, and they've got their own carbon. It's like F1 racing, you always got the car manufacturer that's got the latest bit of tech, and they win the world championships that year just because of because of the athlete, not because of the driver, because of the technology. And it's taken that, for this is my view, and it's taken that, you know, 4 or 5 year evolution of the science for everybody to now be back on a level playing field. But at the same time, then all your world records and everything like that are maybe imbalanced. There's almost like a pre-carbon and a post-carbon.
Yeah, and obviously they're not going to stand up to what they're running now. You know, you guys that would normally be like 13:40 running 13:16 now and stuff, you know, and getting girls that would be running 15:20 running sub-15s now. But it's relevant and all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, it has moved forward. So like I think, like, you know, records are there to be broken, and they are going to be broken. But especially in athletics, they usually have like a sort of an asterisk or something that says, you know, carbon shoes have been used, so that you can know that. But as I say, you know, records are always going to be broken because of the involvement of us getting better with nutrition and all that sort of stuff as well. Because you see from, like, you know, 50 years ago, the progression happened, so it's going to happen, but it's just like been like really supercharged and moved well ahead because of the technology. But, you know, now they're on technology and tracks now, isn't it? They're starting to put stuff into tracks and things now, so it's like it's never ending, isn't it? So
go gadget legs, as they say. It's almost a bit of that. But it is in a lot of respects, you've just said there, it's the evolution of the sport. It's like golf, and golfers are able to hit the ball 30 yards further than they used to because of the club technology rather than
And
the
same with
athletic. Yeah,
it just took several years for athletics to actually get into that technology.
yeah.
I'm sure that it was getting used long before it was actually announced as well. So before we
Okay.
had carbon shoes, I'm sure a lot of people were wearing carbon shoes, but that's by the by. But as I say, I think that now you've just got to be positive and look at it as a I kind of get annoyed when people keep saying, oh, but it was in the shoes, it's in the shoes, because we're past that stage now. It's here now, is what's happening. And if they run the world record now and then they break it again, then it's kind of like on that even play. It's already been on the carbon shoe, so we can't complain it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the old fogies like myself have to just step up to the plate and say, like, it's a different era now, and just support what's happening, that we've got people still getting out there, still winning races and breaking records. That's what it's about, and that's the kind of way I look at it now. I'm more into like the overall like state of athletics now, rather than worrying about somebody breaking a record because they've got the new, I don't know, Alpha Flies on to compared to the Mega Skies Plus or whatever. The carbon is what it is now.
Yeah. Thank you for that view, because that's my indulgent part of the conversation done. John was pretty much on mute there, wasn't he? So thanks, Liz.
I didn't get involved when you're talking about shoes and stuff.
John gets the $14.99 ones. What was the running shop in Dundee called? The Dundee Runner, was that right?
Years ago, wasn't it? Is that still there? Isn't
I
that a
don't
bowling
think it is. It could
I
be
think
a
it's bowling as well, bowls.
lawn
But
bowling.
but I don't wear carbon shoes. I just wear normal trainers. So even when I ran Tokyo, I just wore my normal trainers. I like to go for support and protection. I don't want an injury.
Go for comfort and luxury.
Right. Can we speak about words in dialect? We're going to want, right, we're going to ask you for your entry into our dialect dictionary. Now, this can be, Stephen will bring this in, but Eilish gave us circles, right? So, Stephen, over to you.
Yeah, we do. We like to get a word into our dialect dictionary from our guests, Liz. And you being a Whitfield lass, as such, I'm sure there's many a dialect dictionary words that hail from down the river, as we call Dundee. So over to you for a wee submission into our dialect dictionary for your sort of favourite.
No, the one I always laugh about is Cundy for drain.
Oh yes.
You can both tell by John's reaction that we know what Cundy means.
Not a great word, is it? Cundy.
I don't know. Down the Cundy. I fucking drop my keys down the Cundy. Again.
For those people who are not familiar with that term, Cundy, it's a drain, right? It's a drain. But in our street, we used to race to the brown Cundy because we had a Cundy that was browner than the rest for some reason. I don't know why. But that used to be the finish line. We used to race to the brown Cundy.
John brings it back to relevance. Well done.
Yeah, there you go.
They're just a Scottish word. It's definitely used in Dundee.
Oh, and
yeah, definitely.
Down the Cundy. Brilliant. Thank you for that one.
And just to sort of wrap things up, Liz, we're going to go down the musical route. We've got a playlist of songs. The young, without me saying this, the Olympic athlete, Young Hearts Run Free, LaBeouf Buff Collection, Volume 4 at present.
That's the one.
And we've got a whole range. It's open to everything. So, what song would you like to add in for our listeners?
Song.
This is the most you've thought about any question all day.
I like it's a slow one though. It's not like an updated, but I
That's
like
all right.
And Stand By You. And the reason I like it is because it's reminiscent from my dad. It's a song that I
connect with him. So
Associate.
stand by the Proclaimers. Not the
Brilliant.
Proclaimers. God, what am I on about? What's the?
John will know.
It's not the Proclaimers. Cindy Hyde. Pretenders. That's it.
Ah,
Yeah.
oh, I know exactly where you are. Yeah, Chrissy Hind. Yeah.
That's what.
Craig
Yeah,
and Charlie were nearly getting an email there saying, "Where's this song?" But it's Chrissy Hind, the Pretenders. I'll stand by you. Brilliant, great tune.
Yeah.
Brilliant
man,
tune.
what you like, John?
And
Brilliant, man.
I tell you, this week has got off to a belter, right?
It's Monday morning, Liz, and it's been a while since we had a thrilling Monday morning as this. I can tell you that. That's been surreal, man. For me, this has been really surreal.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Talking,
And
so hopefully it'll all come together for you.
definitely will. I love the Blair Witch Project segment when you got on the move as well with your camera. That's going to be my favourite part of it. But that's been so good. Thank you so much for being so gracious with your time as well, Liz. That's been such a fun.
Phone chargers, but I didn't. That just shows you I didn't. My phone was out of charge here, which is unusual for a 1 o'clock in the day.
Hey, that just shows everybody it's real. That's what it's all about, and that's what we do.
Authenticity.
Liz, if you're ever in the Fair City, give us a shout and we'll come down and we'll hear a bit crack with you and we'll take you round the North Inch.
Go give us a shout because we'll be there.
You've got it.
Well, Liz McColgan in 3, 2, 1.
Big welcome along to the Young Hearts Run